So now I've launched my After Effects and I'm going to import the file that I've prepared for After Effects. So in my case, I labeled it poster for video. So as you can see, you want to make sure that when this setting comes up, you want to choose composition, retain layer files, or rather layer sizes. I don't want to go into too much explanation of this because I'm not going to show all those options, but just trust me that this is the best choice to pick so that it doesn't scatter your file. It will ask you whether to do editable layer styles or merge layer styles into one footage. Just choose merge layer styles into one footage and that should be fine. And so what will happen is in your program, you see in your program or project tabs rather, you see the actual files it has imported, and then you also see the composition it has created. So first thing we want to do is just double click to open the composition, and you can now see that everything you had in Photoshop has now laid out here as it should be. Now there's something I want to show you. You will notice that when you open the Photoshop file, when you imported the, or rather when you open this composition, right, you see there are some files that are just clear Photoshop layers, and then there are some files that are like compositions inside this composition. So let's just quickly double click here. Again, like I said, this is not a beginner tutorial. At least it's expected that you should understand what a composition is. Let me go to one that's more complex. So now you can see when we go into tower, you can see there's the guy's fingers, there's this background layer, and then there's this billboard, which is also a composition, which means if you double click into that composition, we will see all these different items that we can still work with. Now, let me just take it back a step and go into Photoshop to show you why that is working out that way. So remember in our Photoshop file that we're preparing for After Effects, majority of the items are one layer smart objects, right? But there are some stuff that we still left as folders. So you see this folder ticket bars, you see inside ticket bars you have these two layers. When you come back here, you can see, let me go back to ticket bars. When you double click, you see. So basically, After Effects treats a folder from Photoshop like a subsequence or a composition. So if you imported a file, anything that is inside a folder will be treated as a composition. Let me also show you the example of billboard. So if you come down to tower, for example, inside of tower you have, let me just do it this way. So inside of tower we have guy, billboard folder, layer 1 folder. Let's go back to tower. You have guy, billboard, which is now a composition, layer 1. If you go into billboard, you can now see all these other things. So let me just open billboard. You can see 1, 2, 3. Even this one that is turned off is also turned off in After Effects. If we turn it back on, you see it's there. So this is basically the reason why we set up the files the way we set them up in Photoshop, so that when it imports into After Effects, one, what this means is that I can come into this place and animate these individual objects if I want. I can come here, I can animate these guys individually. So the reason why I made this was a box on their own is because I'm going to do some little text animation here. So let me just zoom in just in case we're not seeing it fully. I'm going to do some text animation here and maybe change the background. So I wanted to be able to see my billboard backdrop while I'm doing this animation, so I don't go outside of it and it becomes a whole wonky process. So, but basically, if you do this, it already sets you up for a smoother workflow when you get into After Effects.